Most travelers come to Qatar expecting skyscrapers and luxury. But beyond the famous skyline are deserts that meet the sea, centuries-old traditions still woven into daily life, mangrove forests hidden along the coast, and landscapes that feel surprisingly different from the image most people have in mind. And most visitors never see all of it, because Qatar isn't just modern. It's a country balancing two worlds at once, one foot planted firmly in the future, and another rooted in traditions that stretch back centuries before a single tower was built. What people think Qatar is. When people think of Qatar, they usually picture Doha. Glass towers, luxury hotels, modern architecture, and major international events. And that version absolutely exists. Qatar has become one of the most recognizable skylines in the Middle East, a destination associated with wealth, ambition, and world-class infrastructure built at remarkable speed. But Qatar's story goes much deeper than what rises above the horizon. And traces of that history remain visible throughout the country today. Once you move beyond the skyline, Qatar starts revealing a very different side of itself. Doha, the anchor. For many travelers, Doha becomes the starting point. The city has transformed rapidly over the past few decades, shifting from a modest Gulf trading town into one of the most architecturally ambitious cities in the world. The pace of that transformation is difficult to fully comprehend until you stand inside it. And the waterfront connects many of the city's most recognizable locations, offering a place where residents and visitors walk together in the evenings as the skyline reflects across the water. Doha feels modern, but it also serves as a gateway into Qatar's deeper story. Because beyond the city limits, the landscape changes quickly. The towers fade, the roads narrow, and what replaces them is something entirely different from anything the skyline suggests: the inland sea, where desert meets ocean. In southern Qatar lies one of the country's most remarkable landscapes, the inland sea. Known locally as Khor Adaid, a name that carries the weight of something ancient and elemental. Here, enormous dunes roll directly into the sea without interruption. The transition between desert and ocean happens gradually and then suddenly, the way great landscapes often do, until you're standing at the edge of both worlds simultaneously. The scale feels larger than expected, the dunes rising and falling in patterns shaped by wind over centuries, and the water stretching toward a horizon that seems impossibly wide. And many travelers consider this one of Qatar's most unforgettable experiences, not because it's famous or promoted heavily, but because it feels genuinely remote, genuinely untouched, like a place that exists entirely on its own terms. Thakira mangroves. One of Qatar's biggest surprises lies along its northeastern coast, the Thakira mangroves. In a country often associated with desert landscapes and glass towers, these ecosystems feel completely unexpected, the kind of place that makes you question the assumptions you arrived with. Dense green channels stretch along the coastline, providing shelter for migratory birds that use Qatar as a stopping point during seasonal journeys across continents. Herons stand motionless in shallow water. Flamingos gather in certain seasons, painting the waterways in soft pink against the green of the mangroves and the pale blue of the sky above. Birds gather among the waterways in numbers that surprise first-time visitors. Kayaks move quietly through the channels, following paths that wind between tangled roots and calm water where almost no sound reaches from the outside world. Most visitors leave Qatar thinking they've seen it, but the deeper you explore, the more it changes. The city gives way to desert. Desert gives way to open ocean. And somewhere along the northeastern coast, the landscape transforms again into something green and quiet and entirely its own. If you enjoy discovering destinations beyond the obvious, this channel is built for that. People and everyday life. One thing many travelers notice about Qatar isn't only the architecture. It's the contrast between tradition and modern life, and how naturally that contrast seems to coexist within a single country, sometimes within a single street. Coffee remains an important social ritual. Arabic coffee, served in small cups with dates, carries a significance far beyond the drink itself. Offering coffee is an act of welcome, an expression of hospitality that communicates something words often don't need to. And community continues to play a major role in daily life, shaping how time is spent, how decisions are made, and how relationships are maintained across generations. The pace often feels different from what visitors expect, especially outside the business districts, where the energy shifts from urgent and transactional into something more relaxed and reflective. Souk Waqif and cultural heritage. To understand Qatar's history, many travelers head to Souk Waqif. The market has become one of the country's most recognizable cultural spaces, and for good reason. While much of Doha has been rebuilt and reimagined in recent decades, Souk Waqif preserves an older atmosphere, one that feels connected to Gulf trading life as it existed long before oil reshaped everything. Narrow alleyways wind between shops and cafes where the smell of spices and oud incense drifts through the air at almost any hour of the day. Traditional crafts remain visible throughout the market. Weavers, metalworkers, and artisans continue practices passed down through families over generations, producing objects made by hand rather than by machine. And visitors get a glimpse into a heritage that predates the modern skyline by generations, a reminder that Qatar's identity wasn't invented alongside its towers. It was already there, waiting to be preserved rather than replaced. Food and culture. Qatari cuisine reflects both the desert and the sea, shaped by geography and trade routes that brought ingredients and techniques from across the region over centuries. Fresh fish plays an important role along the coast, where the Gulf has historically provided much of what communities depended on to survive. Grilled hamwar, sea bass, and fresh shrimp appear regularly in local restaurants and family meals. Arabic coffee continues to symbolize hospitality throughout the region, its preparation and serving carrying rituals that communicate respect and welcome far beyond the act of drinking. And meals often become opportunities to gather and connect rather than simply refuel, extending across hours in ways that feel generous with time and attention. Why travelers are looking beyond the stopover. Travel in Qatar is evolving in ways that few would have predicted a decade ago. For many years, the country was viewed primarily as a stopover destination, a place to pass through on the way to somewhere else, a brief layover between continents where Hamad International Airport might be the most memorable part of the visit. But increasingly, travelers are staying longer, drawn by curiosity about what exists beyond the terminal, beyond the hotels, beyond the skyline that greets every arriving flight. Exploring the desert landscapes of the south, where dunes rise into forms that feel almost architectural in their precision and scale. Because Qatar today offers something many travelers are actively searching for, a destination that combines tradition and modernity in one journey, concentrated within a small geography that makes it remarkably accessible. Who this side of Qatar is for. This side of Qatar is for travelers who enjoy contrast and aren't unsettled by a destination that resists easy definition. For people who want culture and modernity existing within the same afternoon, history and innovation occupying the same skyline, desert landscapes stretching out beyond a city that could have been built on another planet entirely. Qatar offers all of it, often within a surprisingly small area, making it one of the few destinations where the contrast between ancient and modern, natural and constructed, traditional and global can be experienced without long journeys or complicated logistics. Everything is close, and yet everything feels different. Qatar isn't just skyscrapers and luxury. It's deserts, traditions, communities, and landscapes that quietly reveal themselves the further you explore, each one adding a layer to the country's identity that no single image or impression can fully contain. And once you move beyond the obvious places, you realize how much more there is. How much history exists beneath the glass. How much nature persists alongside the construction, and how much of the real Qatar has been there all along, waiting for those willing to look past the skyline. Subscribe for more journeys beyond the tourist version. And tell us, would you explore Qatar's desert first, or its coastline?